In today's readings and in this feast, present to us St. Paul, the conversion of St. Paul. And the conversion began with this encounter with Christ. St. Paul was not kind of agnostic or atheist person. He was a very religious Jew person. He was very devoted to his religion, and he got a great zeal to keep the religion. So when the Christianity appeared, I mean, he thought it was like a kind of sect trying to divide the Jew community. So he began to fight against this sect because in his mind, the Christians were heretics, and he was fighting against it, and he was very much devoted to it. We can see, he got even letters from the chief priest to go to different places and to bring all the Christians, men and women. And this is kind of strange because by that time, for these reasons, women were not put into jail. But in this case, they were put into jail as well, together with men. They were bringing to men and women and put them into jail. And it was out of zeal from his religion. He was thinking he was serving God. What happened? When he had this experience or this encounter with Christ, we don't see Christ coming to him and say, Paul, you are a very bad person. Look at what you have been done with all this. No, he calls him by his name, Paul. It's a beautiful thing. And this personal relationship, Paul, why are you persecuting me? Who are you, sir? Now Paul begins to change. Who are you, sir? I am Jesus, the one you are persecuting. And then Jesus tell him what to do. All this pride, all this arrogance is now on the ground. Everything fell on the ground. With this encounter, with this light coming to him, everything falls into the ground. And now we see a different Paul, a humble one. And he said, what should I do? Go into Damascus. And there, somebody will tell you what to do. That's a very humble way, a very difficult situation for him, but it was easy for him after having meeting Jesus. Before meeting Jesus, he was arrogant. He was prideful man. After the meeting of Jesus, he was following the instructions of Jesus. This is the capacity to change, and that is the power of the Holy Spirit. We have two options in the first reading. Both of them are the recount the conversion of St. Paul. One, the one we read today, is by himself, Paul himself saying this, explaining his conversion. And the second option, it is the one who wrote, St. Luke, the one who wrote the Acts of the Apostles, saying about the conversion of St. Paul. And there is one phrase that I would like to emphasize, and the second option that we do not read it, but I would like to emphasize this, what he says is, the Lord told Ananias is the one who met St. Paul in order to be healed. The Lord said to Ananias, go, for this man is a chosen instrument of mine to carry my name before Gentiles, kings, and children of Israel, and I will show him what he will have to suffer for my name. I will show him how much he has to suffer for my name. When we think about this phrase, is Jesus punishing Paul because of this, or Saul by that time? Is Jesus punishing with suffering because of this? Of course not. It's not a punishment. St. Paul understood very well this phrase later on in his life. And then in the first letter to the Corinthians, he explains to the Corinthians how much he has suffered for the name of Christ. I will mention some of them, so please bear with me. It says in the first letter of the Corinthians, chapter 11, this, I have been put into prison more often than the rest of the apostles, being whipped times without number, and faced death again and again. Five different times the Jews leaders gave me 39 lashes. 3 times I was beaten with rods. Once I was stoned. 3 times I was shipwrecked. Once I spent a whole night and a day adrift at the sea. I have traveled on my many long journeys. I have faced danger from rivers and from robbers. I have faced danger from my own people, the Jews, as well as from the Gentiles. I have faced danger in the cities, in the deserts, and on the seas, and so forth. He has all this list, all he has suffered because of this call of Jesus, because this encounter of Jesus. He suffered a lot. But how does he see all these sufferings? In the letter to the Philippians, he says, "For me, to me, living is Christ, and dying is gain." Christ becomes the very source of life for him. And then again in the Philippians chapter 3, "I want to know Christ and the power of his resurrection and the sharing of his sufferings by becoming like him in his death." So we can see the sufferings that he suffered was for him an opportunity to be like Christ. He saw this as a privilege. I imitating Christ. You know, and the Apostle did the same. You may remember Andrew when he was about to be killed. He said, "I don't want to be crucified like my master. Crucify me, head down," you know, and so forth. They have this capacity to see suffering as an opportunity, as a privilege to be united with Christ in this situation. God gave me this grace. Many of the saints said the same thing. God gave me this grace to suffer for his name. I want to be united with Christ. My great desire is to be united with Christ. So Jesus Christ invites St. Paul to share in his life in the same way he suffered. Well, different ways, but in suffering and in the preaching of the gospel. And by preaching of the gospel, bringing salvation to other people. That's a beautiful way of thinking. The conversion of St. Paul was for the well-being of other people, of others, the Gentiles, we the Gentiles. En esta fiesta de San Pablo, la conversión, en la primera carta a los Corintios, en el capítulo 11, San Pablo da una lista de todo lo que tuvo que sufrir por Cristo, por llevar el Evangelio. Él, más que todos los demás apóstoles, viajó a pie, en barco, de muchas maneras, para llevar el Evangelio a muchos lados. Y por llevar el Evangelio tuvo que sufrir mucho, y aquí da toda una lista. Lo apedrearon, lo dejaron muerto en la calle, por muerto, se levanta y sigue predicando, va en el mar, el barco se hunde, se queda toda la noche en el agua allí, no se muere, lo recoge después, etcétera. Todo lo que tiene que sufrir, persecuciones de todo tipo, dice. Tiene que sufrir mucho, pero para él dice, para mí la vida es Cristo, y el morir es ganancia. Es decir, todo eso él lo pone parte como de su vivir unido a Cristo. Esto es lo que me da vida, Cristo es lo que me da vida. Los sufrimientos tienen que venir. Para mí la vida es Cristo y el morir es ganancia. ¿Lo ve de esa manera? Bueno, pues en esta fiesta de San Pablo le damos gracias a Dios porque muy probablemente, gracias a San Pablo, nosotros conocemos el Evangelio. Él es el apóstol de los gentiles, nosotros somos los gentiles, los que no somos judíos. So let us give thanks to the Lord because most likely it is because St. Paul that we know the gospel of the Lord. He is the apostle of the Gentiles, and we are the Gentiles. We have received the gospel of salvation. So let us continue working in our conversion as well. And in which way we need to be converted from? What is aspect of my life that needs to be polished, need to be changed a little bit? Pues hoy que celebramos la conversión de San Pablo, sigamos trabajando en nuestra propia conversión, la cual son aquellos aspectos que Dios me llama todavía a cambiar en mi vida, que tengo que pulir porque pues todavía sigo pecando a través de ellos, o me muestro a veces arrogante, o me muestro a veces como una persona superior a los demás. Bueno, que el Espíritu Santo nos conceda la gracia de reconocer esas cosas que necesitamos pulir en nuestra vida y también lo que necesitamos para hacerlo, no solamente conocerlo, sino llevarlo a cabo.